All right, so you are ready to write your introduction and your conclusion, but perhaps reviewing it first would be a little helpful. Make sure you got the sheet out of the makeup work folders, or if maybe I gave you one in class, but make sure you have this sheet that has introduction on the front, and on the back it has conclusion, because I'll be using that to help you review the format of intro and conclusion before you start writing your practice ones for the embedded assessment. Okay, so soon you will have to write an introduction for your embedded assessment. And the first thing that is always imperative that you make sure you have done and ready is your thesis statement. In the introduction, your thesis statement comes last. So that's something to keep in mind. Although it might be the first sentence you write on a scratched piece of paper or off to the side, but it goes last in the introduction. You're actually going to use your thesis statement 2 times. You're going to use it in the introduction, and then you're also going to use it again. You might restate it a little bit, but you're going to use it again in the conclusion. So the thesis statement is a very important sentence because your whole entire paper will be surrounded and based on it. So if you remember correctly, back when we read And Then There Were None, that was your first time that I taught you how to write an introduction paragraph. So let's quickly review the parts. You have what we call the hook, that's first. You then have the bridge, that is second. And then the third thing that needs to go in your introduction paragraph is the thesis. And that, like I said, that's last. So let's talk about the hook. Let's take a look. There are many different strategies that you can use for the hook. This one happens to be a quote. So you can use a quote. I'm going to try, and it's hard to write with this, but I'm going to try and keep a running little tally up here of all the different strategies you can use for the hook. But one would be a quote. If you use a quote, it is so important that you do something with it immediately in the next sentence. You can't just introduce a quote in the first sentence and then leave it and start talking about something totally different. The very next sentence, the second sentence that comes right after it, must talk about the quote and relate it to your subject, which is the 9 students. So let's take a look at what this person did here. So our Dr. Martin Luther King said, if I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way. In other words, everything is achievable. I just might have to do it in smaller steps. So let's take a look and see how the bridge is going to connect it to the students. Great things were accomplished in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955 because ordinary citizens came together. When the African American community joined together to bravely fight the injustice they faced, they showed that through small actions, they could accomplish critical goals in the fight for their most basic civil rights. Okay, so this is about the bus boycott, I forgot. But that's okay. You still need to make sure that this quote is going to have to relate to the bus boycott. They did a great job with that. I love how right here they wrote great things because that's what he talked about, right? So they're even using some of the same words from the quote to kind of pull it all together nicely. And that's what a bridge should do. A bridge must connect. So that was good. That works out well. And then, of course, you would go into your thesis statement. Okay? Maybe we should take a look at another one right down below. Whoops, let me erase that real quick. And I've used highlighters here, but you don't have to. But I just wanted to make sure you could see the difference. All right, so here we have our hook. And they didn't use a quote this time. It looks like here we just have a strong sentence, a startling fact, something that's really interesting. The United States of America is often regarded as one of the greatest nations on earth. However, not long ago, African American citizens of this great country were treated cruelly and in ways that suggested that their worth was less than white citizens. Pretty powerful sentence, pretty powerful statement. So it's kind of like the shock and awe. I'm going to call it that, the shock and awe, where you kind of really make this profound statement. But listen, this is for my friends who love to write. This is for my friends who have excellent sentence structure. I mean, we have an amazing sentence structure here. This is not a simple sentence. So if you're confident with your writing and you want to go for this kind of a hook, by all means, I will help you, give you some feedback to help you improve it. But it's not for everybody. Another quote that you could possibly use could be maybe be a question, a couple of rhetorical questions, but that's very, very similar to the quote. You must do something with the questions in the very next sentence. Not answering them, however, because that would be weird, but you can definitely make a statement about them, okay? All right, so this bridge that we have here, that comes next. Remember, I kind of want to show you something really quick here before I go into all this. I did 2 different paragraphs here on purpose. This is for my basic average writers, okay? Not really advanced quite yet. This one down here is advanced, okay? And I think that's really important for you to understand because, listen, you only really need to have 4 to 5 sentences, and we've talked about that. 4 to 5 sentences. This one down here, the sentence structure is very impressive, and therefore it makes the paragraph look longer. So I think that if you're going to follow this introduction and use it as a model, I think you need to have a realistic conversation with yourself and try to figure out if you are an advanced writer or if you're still kind of a novice and you're just kind of warming up to it. All right, the next paragraph is your conclusion paragraph, so let's quickly review that. I think this is much easier than the conclusion personally. So when the main thing to remember is that here is your original thesis statement, okay? The first one you wrote, the original. And this is the one that probably went in your introduction. When you go to write the restated thesis statement in your conclusion, it's really important that you remember to use synonyms so that you can restate your points. So for example, in this thesis statement, you have that the bus boycott I picked, that they were successful because of their organization, their leadership, and their persistence. So I had to match up and find a synonym for each of those. So for organization, when I Googled the online thesaurus and I put in synonyms for organization, it was actually surprising. There really aren't a whole lot of synonyms. So I found arrangements, and there were arrangements made. You know, if you since yours is about the Little Rock 9 students, Daisy Bates made arrangements for the students to meet at her house on the first day of school. She organized that. She arranged it. So I decided that, arrangements would work. So then I go on to my next one, which was leadership. And when I Googled leadership synonyms, I liked guidance. I saw the word guidance. And, if you guide somebody, you are leading them, if you guide them through something. So that worked for that one. And then I picked for persistence, as soon as I saw, because remember, persistent means to not give up, that you're going to go at it again and again and again. And that, to me, I saw the word unwavering, and I just love that word for not giving up. If you're unwavering, you will not falter. You are steadfast. You will not give up. So I loved that one. So I picked that for my synonym for persistence. So here I have my restated thesis statement. It's highlighted in yellow here, and it's always first. I think that is very important to remember. You might want to write these little notes off to the side. It's always the first sentence. It's kind of weird because in the introduction, it's always last, right? In the introduction, your thesis statement was the last sentence. However, in the conclusion, it's your first sentence. It's like it's flip-flopped. And then after that, the only thing that's left to do is what we call your last impression. And this is probably my favorite part of a 5-paragraph essay, because you finally get to write about what you want to write about. You finally don't have to worry about well, the transition goes here and the commentary goes here and that evidence needs to go here. And you don't have to worry about all the rules. You just get to write about these 9 students that did an amazing thing for our country and how they changed it and how they affected society. And you just kind of, in a way, you just kind of write from the heart, to be honest with you. So it's just, all the feels are going to come out, so to speak, for the last impression. I kind of help myself remember because I kind of think about what helps me get started. Sometimes you're like, oh, I don't even know how to start. What was the lesson that was learned from all of this? That kind of helped me talk about it. And to me, the biggest outcome was really just how they committed. Because again, remember, I had the bus boycott. You guys have the Little Rock 9, but with the bus boycott, when I wrote my conclusion paragraph, I really wanted to kind of focus in on the commitment that the people took riding the bus. I mean, gosh, it wasn't just a day or two. It was every single day for over 300 days they committed to not riding that bus. And I just can't get over how incredible that is to get that many people to commit to such a big pledge. So I really wanted to focus in on that in my conclusion because they had to commit to in order for them to win and get what their goal was. So think about that with your 9 students, as you come to that end, and maybe you'll be a little inspired after the movie, but as you come to that end, what is it about these 9 students that's just so darn impressive? And you kind of just talk about that at your last impression, and then you'll be fine. So really, here's sentence number 1, your restated thesis statement, right? You're using your synonyms that you looked up for each of your 3 points. Make sure you keep them in the same order. I hope that was kind of clear. I just assumed that when I went over that, that you could see that they had to be in the same order, but let me show you again. So organization was number 1, so that's first in my restated. Leadership was 2, so that's second in my restated. And persistence was 3, so that is third in my restated. So just make sure you keep them in the same order. But anyways, your restated thesis statement is first in the conclusion, and then everything that comes after that is your last impression. Okay, so 4 sentences, minimal, not that difficult. All right, so we've gone over the intro and the conclusion, so now it's time for you to go back to your doc and begin writing it for the 9 students. You already have your thesis statement written for the 9 students, so that's last. Remember, your thesis that's already written needs to go right here. Then you have your hook. You have your hook first. You have your bridge. And then you have, oops. Then you have your thesis. Okay? That goes there. Then you'll come down here for your conclusion and you'll have your restated, right? And then you have your last impression. Okay? So there you have it. Good luck.